Alright, it's now 2024, and before the new year could even get underway, we've already got a major fight announcement. Yes, that's right, after upwards of a year of teasing us, it looks like Mystic Mac is finally going to make his way back to the octagon. I hope, Conor unveiled this with a video on his Twitter on December 31st, announcing that yes, he will be fighting Michael Chandler, and he's sticking with the 185 pounds, which at this point, I can't even tell if it's a joke anymore. Conor McGregor was first announced to be fighting Michael Chandler at the end of this past season of The Ultimate Fighter, but this was announced back in, I want to say, February or March of 2023. And to put that in perspective, the original announcement of Conor McGregor being in The Ultimate Fighter opposite Michael Chandler was almost 2 full years after his most recent fight against Dustin Poirier. If Conor does in fact return this June, it'll be about 2 weeks shy of 3 years since his last fight, which is insane. I, like most of the fans out there, have been eagerly awaiting his return, but I gotta state the obvious. You have to wonder what kind of shape he's gonna be in after 3 years away from the game, not to mention his leg snapping in half. Now, to be fair, his opponent Michael Chandler, it looks like he'll be 38 by the time they actually fight, so this will probably be one of the last, likely the last big payday for Michael Chandler. And at this point in his career, after already getting his title shot against Charles Oliveira, if Michael Chandler were to lose this fight, this could very well be a retirement fight for Michael Chandler. Chandler himself coming off of a pretty big layoff of upwards of a year, and it'll be closer to 2 years by the time this fight actually happens, again assuming it actually happens. And when you put all this in perspective, Conor McGregor inching towards 36 years old by the time they fight, Michael Chandler at 38 years old, both of them coming off of layoffs of multiple years, it's got to make you wonder why. Now, as far as why Conor still feels the need to come back into the game, I think it's obvious the guy is totally and completely addicted. But when you see how much fun he's having in some of these videos that he's posted in his time away from the cage, the guy looks like he's having a lot of fun. I know he's talked a lot about this being the greatest comeback in sports history, but I wonder if at this point Conor's looking at this as maybe a chance to get one more big highlight reel knockout in front of all the fans in Vegas before he either hangs them up for good or potentially, if Dana White will allow it, go the Floyd Mayweather route and make a whole bunch of money with some exhibition boxing matches. As for Michael Chandler, it's a little self-explanatory. A fight with Conor is just as big as a title fight, at least financially, and whether he wins or loses, he will be etched in UFC history forever. But as for why this fight has taken so long, that's another story. We've seen clips of Conor training and even announcing that he's been medically cleared well over a year ago, and there's been a lot of talk about Conor not being allowed to fight because of USADA, but as of now, January 2024, USADA is no longer a thing. I saw a YouTuber recently, I wish I could remember his name. If I remember his name, I'll go ahead and put it on the screen right here, who had a very interesting theory about how it is potentially possible that Conor McGregor might have failed the USADA test, and maybe that has something to do with the fact that he, after making a big deal about him coming back this past December, why he had to wait until December 31st, the same day that the USADA contract ended, to announce his fight. There was a rule change in the past couple years where USADA no longer can just blast out what fighters test positive, assuming that that fighter goes forward with an appeal and was successful. And while I'm not sure if I 100% buy this theory, it is very interesting. I mean, the timeline does work out. And when USADA left the UFC, they were very clear to make sure that they mentioned that Conor McGregor's whole situation was one of the big driving factors for them to no longer want to work with the UFC anymore. And yes, it was the UFC who officially ended their partnership with USADA, but I could see them wanting to end that relationship due to the risk they're taking, leaving their star fighter's reputation in the hands of an organization that has the power to potentially out him as a cheater. Now, another reason I think that this might have taken way too long to put this fight together is because this is a non-title fight, and since Conor McGregor's involved, it is without a doubt going to be a main event. So with the UFC being on fire right now, with them having major pay-per-view events every single month headlined by a title holder, that leaves very little space for them to slide in a Conor McGregor mega event where they're probably going to want to stack the card. If you watch Conor McGregor's documentary, McGregor Forever, he alluded to this, how at a certain point, his immense star power makes it so that every fight that he has to be a super fight. And unfortunately, there really aren't enough resources or fighters out there to make that happen on a regular basis. But all that being said, I'm just glad we can put all this behind us and finally look forward to another another Conor McGregor fight, potentially the last one. And while it does sound crazy for a guy to come off of back-to-back losses, a broken leg, and a 3-year layoff, and then come back into title contention, the guy's made a career off of doing the impossible, and hopefully he can do it again. Thanks for watching.